This series of quotes comes from the chapter in which Matt's mule dies. She, Janie, snatched her head away from the spectacle and began muttering to herself, "They ought to be ashamed of themselves." She got up without a word and went off. A little war of defense for helpless things was going on inside her. People ought to have some regard for the helpless things. She wanted to fight about it. When she got back, Joe was talking to Matt. $5. Janie stood still while they all made comments. When it was all done, she stood in front of Joe and said, "Jody, that was a mighty fine thing for you to do. 'Tain't everybody would have thought of it. Makes a mighty big man out of you. Something like George Washington and Lincoln," Hambo said. "Your wife is a born orator, Starks. Us never knowed that before. She puts just the right words to your thoughts." Joe bit down harder on his cigar, but he never said a word. Number 14. Who are they selves? A, the big picture talkers from the porch. B, Matt Bonner and Sam Watson. C, the Roberts children. Or D, Janie and Joe. Number 15. Why should they be ashamed? A, because the town loves telling stories about the mule and treats it like an honorary citizen. B, because people are laughing at an old starved mule being picked on. C, because Janie is being abused and stifled by her husband and no one notices. Or D, because Matt Bonner loves and cares for his mule. Number 16. What was bothering Janie at this point? A, the men are getting power by controlling creatures weaker than they are. B, she is stressed out from working in the post office/store, with Joe always making critical comments. C, she is angry that she always retreats from conflict and goes inside of herself. Or D, she is thinking about leaving Joe for tea cake. Number 17. Why does Joe buy the mule from Matt? A, he overhears Janie and wants to make things right between them. B, he wants to look like the big important man in town. C, he is sick of that mule getting in his onion patch. Or D, he wants to get another mule so that Janie can plant her own taters. Number 18. What is Joe's reaction to Hambo's praise of Janie's speech? A, Joe is happy that Janie is finally getting praised by the town. B, Joe is jealous that Janie is admired by another person for anything. C, Joe is worried that Janie is more attractive than him. Or D, Joe is anxious that he is getting older and Janie might be interested in other men. Now, I ain't no young gal no more, but then I ain't no old woman either. I reckon I looks my age, too, but I'm a woman every inch of me, and I knows it. That's a whole lot more'n you can say. Your big bellies round here and put out a log of brag, but 'tain't nothing to it by your big voice. Humph, talking about me looking old. When you pull down your britches, you look like the change of life. When Janie says big bellies, she implies A, Joe acts more important than he is. B, Joe has gained weight. C, Joe has a jolly fake laugh but really thinks that the townsfolk are low class. Or D, Joe is older and has become unattractive. Number 20. The speech represents a turning point in Janie and Joe's relationship because A, Janie publicly degrades Joe's masculinity and virility. B, Joe finally goes too far when he humiliates Janie in the store. C, Janie finally gets the courage to stand up for herself. Or D, A and C. Reading for literature. Read the following passage from Black Boy by Richard Wright carefully before you choose your answers. My mother's suffering grew into a symbol in my mind, gathering to itself all the poverty, the ignorance, the helplessness, the painful, baffling, hunger-ridden days and hours, The restless moving, the futile seeking, the uncertainty, the fear, the dread, the meaningless pain, and the endless suffering. Her life set the emotional tone of my life, colored the men and women I was to meet in the future, conditioned my relation to events that had not yet happened, determined my attitude to situations and circumstances I had yet to face. A somberness of spirit that I was never to lose settled over me during the slow years of my mother's unrelieved suffering. A somberness that was to make me stand apart and look upon excessive joy with suspicion, that was to make me keep forever on the move, and as though to escape a nameless fate seeking to overtake me. At the age of 12, before I had 1 year of formal schooling, I had a conception of life that no experience would ever erase, a predilection of what was real that no argument could ever gainsay, a sense of the world that was mine and mine alone, a notion as to what life meant that no education could ever alter, a conviction that the meaning of living came only when one was struggling to wring a meaning out of meaningless suffering. At the age of 12, I had an attitude toward life that was to endure, that was to make me seek those areas of living that would keep it alive, that was to make me skeptical of everything while seeking everything, tolerant of all, and yet critical. The spirit I had caught gave me insight into the sufferings of others, made me gravitate toward those whose feelings were like my own, made me sit for hours while others told me of their lives, made me strangely tender and cruel, violent and peaceful. It made me want to drive coldly to the heart of every question and to open to the core of suffering I knew I would find there. It made me love burrowing into psychology, into realistic and naturalistic fiction and art, into those whirlpools of politics that had the power to claim the whole of men's souls. It directed my loyalties to the side of men in my rebellion. It made me love talk that sought answers to questions that could help nobody, that could only keep alive in me that enthralling sense of wonder and awe in the face of the drama of human feeling, which is hidden by the external drama of life. Number 21. The passage refers to A, how people's circumstances impact how they see the world. B, a symbol of suffering of the character. C, the story Shame by Dick Gregory. Or D, how young people always disrespect their elders. Number 22. The relationship described here between the narrator and his mother most closely parallels A, the relationship between Janie and Joe. B, the relationship between Nanny and Janie. C, the relationship between Janie and Phoebe. Or D, the relationship between Janie and Tea Cake. 23. This is an example of A, hyperbole, B, simile, C, metaphor, or D, personification. Number 24. The narrator's description of how he listened to stories is most like which character in Their Eyes Were Watching God? A, Nanny, B, Janie, C, Tea Cake, or D, Phoebe. Number 25. This passage uses A, narrator ambiguity, B, symbolism, C, juxtaposition, or D, personification. Number 26. If this passage had to be placed into Their Eyes Were Watching God, it would best be placed A, near the beginning of the book when Janie is dreaming under the blossoming pear tree. B, when Janie is sitting in the hotel room wondering where Tea Cake and her money are. C, when Janie and Tea Cake are working on the muck. Or D, at the end of the story where the frame narrative structure is played out and Janie climbs the stairs to her room, remembering her life. 27. Which character's attitudes towards life in Their Eyes Were Watching God would this passage best reflect? A, Janie's, B, Nanny's, C, Joe's, or D, Tea Cake's. 28. This passage relates to what passage in Their Eyes Were Watching God? A, ships on the horizon as a metaphor for the future for Janie's optimistic belief in the future. B, fertility imagery of the pear tree in bloom. C, Janie's hair being wrapped up or hanging down as a symbol developing her voice. Or D, Janie's ultimate refusal to be put on a pedestal and treated as a mere object. Number 29. What's the author's main purpose in this passage? A, to explain what he likes about psychology. B, to describe his childhood. C, to explain how he is opposed to Zora Neale Hurston's style of writing. Or D, to convey how his childhood developed his intellect and his writer's eye. And number 30. What is the theme of this passage? A, race and racism. B, voice as a means of empowerment. C, love and relationships versus independence. Or D, how personal history and choices shape one's future.